My fiancée texted, working all weekend on a huge deadline. Can't be disturbed. I replied, I understand. Good luck. Then her boss emailed me, asking if she was okay, since she'd requested the weekend off for a family funeral. When I sent him the live photos, her friend just tagged her in from a pool party. Everything I thought I knew about my relationship shattered in an instant. I'm Daniel, 32 years old, and until that Friday afternoon, I believed I was living the dream. Sarah and I had been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months, with our wedding planned for September. She worked as a marketing coordinator at a tech startup downtown, climbing the corporate ladder with impressive determination. I'm a high school history teacher, a job that doesn't pay nearly what hers does, but one I love with everything in me. Our relationship had always been built on trust and communication, or so I thought. Sarah traveled occasionally for work, stayed late at the office during big campaigns, and I never questioned it. Why would I? She was ambitious, driven, exactly the kind of woman who makes things happen. I admired that about her, even when it meant adjusting our plans or spending weekends alone while she worked. That Friday started like any other. I was grading essays in our living room when my phone buzzed with her text. The message seemed routine, nothing that raised any red flags. Sarah had mentioned a major client presentation coming up, so a weekend work crunch made perfect sense. I texted back my support, told her I loved her, and went back to my stack of papers about the American Revolution. An hour later, my phone chimed with an email notification. The sender was Robert Chen, Sarah's boss at the company. My stomach did a small flip, not from suspicion, but from that automatic concern that comes when your partner's supervisor contacts you directly. Maybe something had happened at the office. Maybe she'd forgotten her phone and needed me to bring something. The email's subject line read, "Checking on Sarah." I opened it, expecting a simple request. "Hi Daniel, hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out because Sarah requested this weekend off for a family funeral, and she seemed pretty upset when she submitted the time off request yesterday. I just wanted to make sure everything's okay with your family. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to let me know. We're thinking of you both during this difficult time. Best, Robert." I read the email 3 times, each pass making my confusion deeper. Family funeral? What family funeral? Both our families were fine. I'd just talked to my parents that morning. Sarah's mother had sent me a recipe via text 2 days ago. Nobody was dead. Nobody was even sick. My first thought was that there must be some mistake. Maybe Robert had confused Sarah with another employee. Maybe Sarah had covered for a coworker, and he'd gotten the details mixed up. There had to be a reasonable explanation, because the alternative, the one trying to form in the back of my mind, was too ugly to consider. I was reaching for my phone to call Sarah when it buzzed again, this time with an Instagram notification. Sarah's best friend from college, Monica, had posted something and tagged Sarah in it. I rarely check social media, but something made me open the app. The photo loaded slowly, each pixel revealing details that made my blood run cold. There was Sarah, in a bright yellow bikini I'd never seen before, laughing with her head thrown back. Next to her, with his arm wrapped possessively around her waist, was a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, muscular, exactly the kind of guy who looks like he spends more time at the gym than anywhere else. The caption read, "Best weekend ever. Nothing beats good friends, good drinks, and good vibes at Jake's place." The photo was stamped live, meaning it had been taken within the last hour. The location tag showed an address in the suburbs, about 40 minutes from our apartment. In the background, I could see other people lounging by a pool, drinks in hand, clearly enjoying a party that had nothing to do with work deadlines or family funerals. My hands started shaking. I zoomed in on the photo, studying every detail with the desperate hope that I was misunderstanding what I was seeing. But there was no misunderstanding the way that man's hand rested on her hip, or the way she leaned into him, or the intimacy in their body language that spoke of more than casual friendship. I screenshot the photo, then checked Monica's profile for more. She'd posted a series of stories throughout the day. Sarah appeared in most of them, always with that same man, always laughing, always touching. In one video, he was feeding her a strawberry. In another, they were dancing together while someone played music from a portable speaker. The timestamp showed the party had started around noon, right around the time Sarah had texted me about her huge deadline. The betrayal hit me in waves. First came the shock, the simple disbelief that this could be happening. Then anger, hot and sharp, at the lies, at the deception, at the sheer audacity of making up a family funeral to cover an affair. But underneath it all was something worse, the crushing realization that I didn't know this woman at all. The person I'd planned to marry, the person I'd trusted completely, was a stranger wearing Sarah's face. I sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, staring at those photos, trying to reconcile the woman in the bikini with the woman who'd kissed me goodbye that morning. The woman who'd told me she loved me just hours ago. The woman who'd helped me pick out wedding invitations last weekend while talking about our future together. My phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. "Deadline is brutal. Probably won't be able to check messages much. Miss you." The casual lie, delivered so smoothly, so effortlessly, told me everything I needed to know about how long this had been going on. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was practiced deception, the kind that comes from months of living a double life. I looked at Robert's email again, then back at the Instagram photos. Then I did something that surprised even myself. Instead of calling Sarah, instead of confronting her immediately in an angry rage, I took a breath and started thinking strategically. If she could be calculated and cold in her betrayal, then I could be calculated and cold in my response. I forwarded the Instagram screenshots to Robert with a simple message. "Hi Robert, thank you for your concern. I'm confused about the funeral request, as no one in our family has died. I'm attaching some photos that were posted within the last hour. I think there may be some miscommunication about Sarah's weekend plans. Best, Daniel." Then I sat back and waited, my heart pounding, my hands still trembling, knowing that what I'd just set in motion would change everything. The confrontation was coming, but it would be on my terms, with evidence that couldn't be explained away in a moment of my choosing. The woman in those photos had no idea that her carefully constructed lies were about to collapse around her. She had no idea that while she was laughing at that pool party, her relationship, her reputation, and possibly her career were all crumbling to dust. Within 10 minutes of sending that email to Robert, my phone started ringing. It wasn't Sarah. It was Robert himself, and something in the urgency of the repeated calls told me he'd seen the screenshots and understood exactly what they meant. I let it ring twice before answering, using those extra seconds to steady my voice. Hello? Daniel. Robert's voice was tight, professional, but laced with barely contained anger. I just saw your email. I need to be very clear about something. Sarah submitted her time off request through our HR system yesterday afternoon, complete with documentation about a grandmother's funeral. She even showed me what appeared to be a funeral home notice. My grip tightened on the phone. A funeral home notice? Yes. I'm looking at the digital copy now in our system. He paused and I could hear him typing. Daniel, I'm going to ask you something directly, and I need you to be honest with me. Are those photos genuine? Is that really Sarah at a pool party right now? They're from her best friend's Instagram, posted live within the last 2 hours. I can send you the direct links if you need verification. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. When Robert spoke again, his voice had shifted from concerned boss to something harder, more calculating. I'm going to need to call you back. Don't contact Sarah yet, please. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there, staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. Sarah hadn't just lied to me. She'd fabricated official documentation, committed what could arguably be considered fraud against her employer, all to spend a weekend with another man. The scope of her deception was staggering. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was premeditated, carefully planned, executed with enough detail to fool HR systems and supervisors. How long had she been capable of this level of betrayal? How many other lies had I believed? My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend. Marcus. Dude, did you see Monica's Instagram? Is that Sarah? So it was spreading. Monica's public posts meant that people in our social circle were seeing those photos. People who knew we were engaged. People who would start asking questions. The humiliation of it burned through me. The knowledge that I'd been made a fool. That people were probably already gossiping about my cheating fiancé while I sat alone in our apartment. I texted Marcus back. Yeah, I saw. Can you come over? His response was immediate. On my way. 20 minutes. I walked through our apartment, seeing it differently now. The framed photos of us on the walls looked like lies. The wedding planning binder on the coffee table felt like a joke. Even the spare key she'd given me, hanging on the hook by the door, seemed like part of an elaborate deception. How much of our life together had been real? In our bedroom, I opened Sarah's closet. Everything was organized with her characteristic precision. Work clothes on the left, casual wear in the middle, dressy outfits on the right. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos of everything, documenting the contents, though I wasn't entirely sure why. Some instinct told me I'd need evidence of what was here, what was hers, what she'd eventually come back for. That's when I noticed the shoebox on the top shelf, pushed far back behind her winter sweaters. It wasn't one of her regular shoeboxes. This one looked older, worn at the corners. I pulled it down, my hands moving almost on autopilot. Inside were letters, dozens of them, handwritten notes on expensive stationery, cards with intimate messages. I opened one, dated 6 months ago, and my stomach dropped as I read. Sarah, last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Jake, the man from the pool party photos. This had been going on for at least 6 months, maybe longer. I opened another letter, this one from 8 months ago, right around the time she'd accepted my proposal. I know this is complicated, but what we have is real. I'll wait as long as you need me to. The room tilted. She'd been carrying on this affair the entire time we'd been engaged. While I was planning our future, picking out wedding venues, calling caterers, she was writing love notes to another man. While I was lying in bed next to her at night, she was thinking about him. I photographed every letter, every card, every piece of evidence in that box. Then I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it, replacing the box on the shelf. She'd get it all back eventually, but not before I documented her betrayal in exhaustive detail. The doorbell rang. Marcus stood there with 2 six-packs of beer and a pizza, reading my face instantly. Jesus, Daniel. Come here, man. He pulled me into a hug, and something in that gesture of genuine friendship, of uncomplicated loyalty, made the reality hit harder. We sat in the living room, and I showed him everything. The initial text from Sarah, Robert's email, the Instagram photos, the letters I'd found. Marcus's expression grew darker with each revelation, his jaw clenching tighter. That absolute. He cut himself off, shaking his head. 6 months? She's been lying to you for 6 months? At least, maybe longer. I took a long drink of beer, welcoming the slight numbness. The letters go back further, but those are the oldest ones in the box. Who knows when it actually started? What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone rang again. Robert's name flashed on the screen. I put it on speaker so Marcus could hear. Daniel, I've just finished a conference call with our HR director and legal team. Robert's voice was formal now, carefully professional. I need to inform you that Sarah has been placed on immediate administrative leave pending an investigation into fraudulent use of company bereavement benefits. The funeral home notice she submitted was fabricated. We've confirmed this with the funeral home she cited, and they have no record of any services for anyone with her grandmother's name. My eyes widened. She fabricated the entire thing completely. She used a template she apparently found online, filled in false information, and submitted it through our system. This constitutes fraud, Daniel. Serious fraud. She could face termination and potentially legal consequences depending on how our legal team decides to proceed. Marcus let out a low whistle. I found my voice. What happens now? That depends on several factors, including what Sarah says when we contact her on Monday morning. minute. She doesn't know about this yet. We've decided to wait until she returns to work to confront her formally. However, I wanted you to know what's happening, both as a courtesy and because you may be contacted as part of the investigation. I understand. Daniel, I'm sorry. I know this doesn't help the personal situation, but for what it's worth, you deserved better than this. He paused. One more thing. The company has a strict ethics policy. If this relationship with this Jake person was in any way connected to company business, or if she met him through work events, that could be another violation. Do you know anything about how they met? I looked at Marcus, who was already pulling up Jake's Instagram profile that we found tagged in Monica's posts. Give me a minute, Robert. Let me see what I can find out. Jake's profile was public, filled with gym selfies, car photos, and party pictures. His bio listed him as a senior sales executive at a company I recognized immediately. My blood ran cold. Robert, according to his social media, Jake works for Pinnacle Solutions. Silence on the other end. Then, that's our biggest client. Sarah manages that account. Yeah, I said quietly. I know. The implications were massive. Sarah hadn't just been having an affair. She'd been having an affair with a client, using company resources and time, lying to her employer, and potentially compromising business relationships worth millions of dollars. The betrayal had layers I was still uncovering. I'll need to take this to legal immediately, Robert said. This could affect our entire contract with Pinnacle. Daniel, I'm going to have to ask you not to contact Sarah about any of this until Monday. I know that's difficult, but we need to handle this properly from a legal standpoint. I won't contact her, I promised. But Robert, I need to know something. If she's placed on leave, does that mean she'll come home? Because I don't want to be here when she does. That's entirely your decision. But if you need time away, take it. And Daniel, document everything. Save every text, every email, every photo. You're going to need it. After we hung up, Marcus looked at me with something between sympathy and fierce protectiveness. Pack a bag. You're staying at my place this weekend. You shouldn't be here alone, and you definitely shouldn't be here when she comes back. He was right. I moved through the apartment methodically, packing clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and work materials. As I packed, Marcus helped me document everything. Photos of the apartment, screenshots of joint bank accounts, copies of our lease agreement, receipts for the wedding deposits I'd paid. What about the wedding? Marcus asked, pointing to the binder on the coffee table. I picked it up, flipping through pages of carefully selected venue options, catering menus, invitation designs, thousands of dollars in deposits, months of planning, all for a future that had been a lie. I'll deal with it Monday. Right now, I just need to get out of here. As we were loading my bags into Marcus's car, my phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. This deadline is killing me. Probably won't be done until late Sunday. I'll call you when I can. Love you. The casual endearment at the end. Those two words that once meant everything now felt like acid. I showed the text to Marcus, who shook his head in disgust. Don't respond, he advised. Let her think everything's fine. When she comes back Sunday night and realizes you're gone, that's when the real panic will set in. He was right, but something in me wanted her to know now, wanted to confront her, wanted to see her face when her lies collapsed. But I also knew that Robert was right about waiting, about documenting everything, about handling this strategically rather than emotional, so I didn't respond. I got in Marcus's car and watched our apartment building disappear in the rearview mirror, carrying with me evidence of betrayal and the strange, cold clarity that comes when the person you loved most reveals themselves to be someone you never really knew at all. The weekend stretched ahead, and somewhere across town, Sarah was laughing at a pool party, completely unaware that her carefully constructed double life was about to detonate spectacularly. Monday morning was coming, and with it, consequences she couldn't manipulate or explain away. For now, all I could do was wait and prepare for the confrontation that would end everything. Marcus's apartment became my fortress that weekend, a place where I could process the destruction of my life without the constant reminders of Sarah's betrayal surrounding me. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of cruel sunshine that feels personally offensive when your world is falling apart. I woke up on Marcus's couch to the smell of coffee and the sound of him moving around in the kitchen. Thought you might need this, he said, handing me a mug. You talked in your sleep. Sounded rough. I didn't remember my dreams, but my jaw ached like I'd been clenching it all night. Thanks. So what's the plan? You just going to hide out here until Monday? It was a fair question. Part of me wanted to do exactly that, to avoid reality for as long as possible. But another part, the part that had been growing stronger since I'd discovered those letters, wanted something else entirely. I wanted the truth, all of it, not just the pieces I'd stumbled across. I need to know everything, I said finally. How long this has really been going on. How many people knew. Whether our entire relationship was a lie or just the last 6 months. Marcus nodded slowly. You thinking about checking out that pool party? The idea had been forming in the back of my mind since yesterday, but hearing it said aloud made it real. Monica's stories showed it going all weekend. If Sarah thinks I believe her work story, she has no reason to be careful. She might still be there. That's either brave or stupid, man. Probably both. I need to see it myself. I need to look her in the face and know that what I found is real, not just my imagination making things worse than they are. Marcus studied me for a long moment. All right, but I'm driving and we're doing this smart. No confrontations, no scenes. We observe, we document if we need to, and we leave. Agreed? Agreed. 2 hours later, we were parked down the street from the address tagged in Monica's Instagram posts. It was a beautiful suburban home, the kind with a 3-car garage and professionally landscaped yard that screamed money. Several cars lined the driveway and street, and even from our position, we could hear music and laughter coming from the backyard. Last chance to back out, Marcus said. I shook my head and pulled out my phone, opening Instagram. Monica had posted another story 30 minutes ago, a video of Sarah and Jake in the pool, her arms wrapped around his neck, both of them laughing as he spun her around. The timestamp was recent enough that they were definitely still there. I'm going to walk past the house, I said. The fence isn't solid. If I can see into the backyard from the sidewalk, that's all I need. I'm coming with you. We got out of the car and started walking. Just two guys out for a stroll on a sunny Saturday afternoon. As we approached the house, the sounds grew louder. Music, splashing, the particular kind of carefree laughter that comes from day drinking and no responsibilities. The fence was decorative iron with space between the bars, clearly designed more for aesthetics than privacy. Through the gaps, I could see the pool, the deck, and the people lounging around. And there, in the shallow end of the pool, was Sarah. She looked happy. That was the part that hurt most. Not guilty, not conflicted, not torn between two lives, just purely, genuinely happy. She was wearing the same yellow bikini from yesterday's photos, her hair wet and slicked back. Jake stood behind her, his arms around her waist, kissing her neck while she leaned back into him with her eyes closed. The intimacy of the moment was undeniable. This wasn't a new affair or a drunken mistake. This was comfort, familiarity, the kind of physical ease that comes from countless other moments just like this one. They looked like a couple, like people who belonged together, like everything I'd thought Sarah and I were. Daniel, Marcus said quietly, his hand on my shoulder. We should go. But I couldn't move. I stood there, watching through the fence as the woman I'd planned to marry displayed affection for another man that she'd never shown me with such unguarded joy. She'd always been somewhat reserved with physical affection, telling me she wasn't naturally demonstrative. Apparently that was only true with me. Then Monica appeared in my line of sight, holding her phone up to take another photo. She was laughing, saying something I couldn't hear, and Sarah turned toward her with the biggest smile I'd ever seen on her face. That's when Sarah's eyes drifted toward the fence, toward the street, and for one heart-stopping moment, our gazes locked. I watched the progression of emotions cross her face in real time. Confusion first, trying to process why I was there. Then recognition, her eyes going wide as understanding hit. Then panic, pure and absolute, as she realized what I'd just witnessed. Her mouth opened, maybe to call out, maybe just in shock, but no sound came. Jake noticed her reaction and followed her gaze. When he saw me, his expression shifted to something defensive, almost challenging. He pulled Sarah closer, a territorial gesture that made his intentions clear. He knew exactly who I was, and he didn't care that I was watching. If anything, he seemed pleased that I'd finally found out. Daniel, we're leaving now. Marcus pulled me firmly away from the fence, and this time I let him. We walked back to his car quickly, not quite running but close. Behind us, I could hear Sarah's voice calling my name, high and desperate, and then the sound of the pool gate opening. Drive, I said as soon as we were in the car. Marcus didn't need to be told twice. As we pulled away, I looked back to see Sarah standing in the street, dripping wet in her bikini, one hand raised as if she could call me back. Jake had followed her out but stopped at the property line, watching with his arms crossed, looking smug even from this distance. My phone started ringing before we'd made it 2 blocks. Sarah's name flashed on the screen, over and over. I declined each call, watching the notifications pile up. Then the texts started coming in rapid succession. Daniel, please let me explain. It's not what you think. Please answer your phone. Where are you? We need to talk. Daniel, please, I love you. This is a huge misunderstanding. Each message was more desperate than the last, and I felt absolutely nothing reading them. The panic she was feeling now, the fear of consequences, the desperate need to control the narrative. None of it touched me. I was beyond that somehow, floating in a strange space where her distress couldn't reach me. What do you want to do? Marcus asked, his eyes on the road. Take me back to your place. I need to think. But thinking was exactly what I'd been doing too much of. Back at Marcus's apartment, I sat on the couch and finally opened all those texts from Sarah, reading through her increasingly frantic messages. They followed a predictable pattern: denial, then minimization, then promises to explain, then love declarations, then anger when I didn't respond, then back to desperate pleas. The calls continued. 10, 15, 20 missed calls. She left voicemails, each one more emotional than the last. In the first, her voice was controlled, measured. Daniel, I don't know what you think you saw, but you're misunderstanding the situation. Please call me back so we can talk like adults. By the 5th voicemail, she was crying. Please, Daniel. Please just talk to me. I know how this looks, but I can explain everything. I love you. You have to believe me. The 10th one was angry. You know what? This is ridiculous. You can't just ignore me. We're engaged, Daniel. You owe me a conversation. Stop being so dramatic and call me back. The emotional manipulation was textbook, and the fact that I could see it so clearly now told me everything I needed to know about our relationship. How many other times had she used these same tactics to control situations, to make me doubt my own perceptions, to get her way? Marcus ordered Chinese food for dinner, and we ate in relative silence while my phone continued to buzz on the coffee table between us. Around 7 p.m., a new name appeared on my screen. Monica. Should I answer? I asked Marcus. Might as well hear what she has to say. I accepted the call. Hello. Daniel. Monica's voice was tight, defensive. Look, Sarah is completely losing it. She's been crying for hours. Jake had to take her home because she couldn't drive. Whatever you think happened, I know exactly what happened, Monica. I saw it with my own eyes, and I have months of love letters between them to back it up. Silence on the other end. Then, months? You didn't know? I couldn't keep the bitter laugh out of my voice. What did you think was going on? I thought, she paused, I thought it was new. A few weeks maybe. Sarah said you two were having problems, that you'd grown apart, that she was planning to end things with you anyway. She made it sound like she was just moving on. We weren't having problems, at least I didn't think we were. And she definitely wasn't planning to end things, considering we're supposed to get married in 3 months. Another long silence. She told us you knew. She said you'd agreed to see other people while you figured things out. The lie was so outrageous, so completely fabricated, that I almost laughed. That never never happened. Everything about our relationship, from my perspective, was completely normal until yesterday, when her boss emailed me about a family funeral that didn't exist. Oh my God, Monica whispered. Daniel, I'm so sorry. We all believed her. She showed us texts that she said were from you, agreeing to take a break, saying you wanted time to think about the engagement. I wouldn't have posted those photos if I'd known. I thought you knew. The texts she'd shown them were probably fake, manufactured evidence to support her lies to our friends. The depth of her deception kept expanding, each new layer revealing just how calculating she'd been. Who else knew? I asked. Who else did she tell these lies to? Everyone at the party, maybe 20 people? She's been bringing Jake around for a few months, always with the story that you two were on a break. Some people were uncomfortable with it, thought she should wait until things were officially over with you, but she kept insisting everything was fine, that you knew, that you'd even encouraged her to date other people. So she hadn't just betrayed me, she'd poisoned our entire social circle with lies, making me look like the villain in a story I didn't even know I was part of. People we'd spent years building friendships with now had a completely false narrative about our relationship, about who I was, about what had happened. Tell Sarah, I said carefully, that she should stop calling me. Tell her I'll contact her when I'm ready, and not before. And Monica, delete those photos. All of them. Already done. Daniel, I really am sorry. If I'd known, yeah. I hung up before she could finish. Marcus had been listening to my side of the conversation, and his expression was dark. She told people you'd agreed to an open relationship, apparently, complete with fake texts as proof. I rubbed my face, exhausted by the sheer scope of Sarah's lies. How do you even fight against that? How do you prove something didn't happen? You keep documenting everything that did happen. Her boss knows the truth. HR knows the truth. And now Monica knows she was lied to. The truth has a way of coming out, man. Liars eventually trip themselves up. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was an email notification. I opened it to find a message from Robert, sent to my personal email rather than my work one. Daniel, I hope you're holding up okay. I wanted to give you a heads up that Sarah called me this evening, very upset, demanding to know why she was placed on leave. I told her we'd discuss it Monday morning during a formal meeting with HR present. She became quite agitated and made several statements that I've documented. Among other things, she claimed you'd been tracking her location without her knowledge, that you'd shown up at a private party to harass her, and that you'd been sending her threatening messages. I assume none of this is true, but I wanted you to be aware of these allegations in case she files a police report. Please save any evidence that contradicts these claims. Best, Robert. I showed the email to Marcus, whose expression went from angry to furious. She's trying to make you the bad guy. She's going to claim harassment. Of course she is. It's the logical next move. She can't explain away what I saw, so she has to make me the unreliable narrator. I leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. I need a lawyer, not for the wedding stuff, for this. If she's making false accusations, I need legal protection. My cousin's a lawyer, family law mostly, but she'll know who to refer you to. I'll call her tomorrow. The rest of the evening passed in a fog. Sarah's calls eventually stopped around 10 p.m., replaced by a final text. I know you're hurt and angry. I understand, but ignoring me won't solve anything. We need to talk about this, like adults. I'll be at the apartment tomorrow at noon. Please be there. We need to figure this out together. The presumption in that message, the assumption that I owed her a conversation, that we figure this out together, as if this were some mutual problem we both created, made my blood boil. There was nothing to figure out. She'd been cheating for months, lying to everyone, and now was trying to control the narrative to minimize her responsibility. I texted back a single line: don't come to the apartment. I won't be there. My lawyer will be in contact with you regarding our shared assets and dissolving the engagement. A response came within seconds. Your lawyer? Daniel, you're being insane. Just talk to me. I blocked her number. Then I blocked her on all social media, blocked her email, removed her from every digital space where she could reach me. If she wanted to communicate, she could do it through legal channels. Sunday morning brought a new complication. My mother called, her voice tight with concern. Daniel, honey, Sarah's mother just called me. She said you and Sarah had some kind of fight and you're refusing to talk to her. What's going on? Of course, Sarah had run to her mother, spinning whatever story made her look best. I took a deep breath and told my mother everything. The fake funeral, the pool party, the 6 months of affair, the lies to our friends, all of it. By the time I finished, my mother was crying. Oh, Daniel. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. What do you need? What can your father and I do? Just believe me, I said, because I think Sarah's going to try to tell a very different version of this story. We believe you, honey. We've always believed you. And I'm calling the caterer tomorrow morning to cancel everything. You focus on taking care of yourself. After we hung up, I felt a small measure of relief. At least my family knew the truth. At least I wouldn't have to fight that battle. Monday morning arrived too slowly and too quickly at the same time. I got up early, showered, dressed in my best suit like I was preparing for war. Marcus drove me back to my apartment so I could get my car and some more clothes. We both tensed as we approached, half expecting Sarah to be waiting there despite my warning, but the parking lot was empty of her vehicle. Inside, the apartment looked untouched, exactly as I'd left it Saturday morning, but it felt different now, contaminated by knowledge I couldn't unknow. I packed more clothes quickly, grabbed important documents, and left again within 20 minutes. At school, I went through the motions of teaching, my mind elsewhere. Between classes, I checked my email to find a message from Marcus's cousin, Rebecca Chen, who'd agreed to take my case. She wanted to meet that afternoon to discuss next steps, and at 9:30 a.m., Robert called. It's done. Sarah arrived 15 minutes ago and was escorted directly to the conference room. She's with HR and legal now. I can't tell you details, but I can say that the meeting isn't going well for her. She came in defensive and angry, which isn't helping her case. What happens next? That depends on what legal decides. But Daniel, between you and me, pack up anything of hers you don't want in your apartment anymore. I don't think she'll be in a position to keep her job by the end of the day. The call ended, and I stood in my empty classroom, the weight of everything pressing down on me. Somewhere across town, Sarah was facing consequences for the first time in this whole mess. Her job was hanging by a thread. Our engagement was over. Her lies were unraveling. And tomorrow, I'd meet with Rebecca to start the legal process of untangling our lives completely. But today, right now, all I could do was wait for the final pieces to fall. The meeting with Rebecca Chen took place in her downtown office, a sleek space that smelled of leather and coffee. She was in her late 30s, sharp-eyed and professional, with the kind of direct manner that immediately put me at ease. Marcus filled me in on the basics, she said, gesturing for me to sit. But I need to hear everything from you, start to finish, with all the details you can remember. I spent the next hour walking her through the timeline. Sarah's text about working, Robert's email about the funeral, the Instagram photos, the letters I'd found, the confrontation at the pool party, Sarah's subsequent lies to our friends and her attempts to paint me as the aggressor. Rebecca took notes, occasionally stopping me to ask clarifying questions. When I finished, she sat back and tapped her pen against her legal pad. All right, first thing, you're not married, which simplifies things considerably. No divorce proceedings, no alimony, no division of marital property. However, you are living together and presumably have shared financial obligations. We split rent and utilities. The apartment lease is in both our names, up for renewal in 2 months. We have a joint checking account we both contribute to for shared expenses. Everything else is separate. Good. That joint account, how much is in it? About $3,000 last time I checked. Mostly money we were saving for wedding expenses. Rebecca made a note. You'll want to withdraw half of that immediately and open a new individual account. Document the withdrawal with screenshots showing the balance before and after. If she tries to claim you took more than your share, you'll have proof. What about the apartment? How much notice does your lease require? 60 days. Perfect. You can give notice now. Effective end of the lease term. Until then, you have a few options. You can continue staying with Marcus, you can find a sublet, or you can exercise your legal right to remain in the apartment until the lease ends. However, given Sarah's attempts to paint you as harassing her, I'd advise against being alone with her anywhere, including your shared apartment. The practical nature of Rebecca's advice was grounding. These were problems with solutions, actions I could take, ways to move forward. What about the wedding deposits? That's where it gets complicated. Wedding expenses can be tricky because they're essentially gifts to each other and advance payments for services. Do you have documentation of who paid for what? I pulled out my phone and showed her the spreadsheet I created over the weekend. I paid for the venue deposit, $5,000. I paid for the catering deposit, $3,000. She paid for her dress, about $2,000. The photographer was split, $1,500 each. The florist was her mother's contribution. Rebecca studied the spreadsheet. So you're in for roughly $9,500 in total deposits? Yes. Here's the reality. Most wedding vendors have non-refundable deposit clauses. You might get some money back if they can rebook those dates, but legally, you're probably not entitled to a full refund. However, since Sarah is the one who breached the relationship through infidelity, you could potentially argue that she should reimburse you for your share of the losses. Would that actually work? It depends. In theory, yes. In practice, it means going to small claims court, which costs money and time. You have to decide if pursuing it is worth the emotional energy. She paused. What matters more to you right now, the money or being done with her completely? I thought about it. $9,000 wasn't nothing, especially on a teacher's salary. But the idea of months of legal battles, of staying connected to Sarah through court proceedings, of having to see her and relive this betrayal over and over, being done with her, I said finally. That's what I thought. My advice, contact the vendors yourself. Explain that the wedding is canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. Ask about their refund policies. Some might surprise you and offer partial refunds. Document everything. Then write off whatever you can't recover as the cost of escaping a disastrous marriage before it actually happened. That seems too easy. Nothing about this is easy, Daniel. But sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is cut your losses and move forward. She flipped a page in her notes. Now, let's talk about Sarah's allegations. You said she told her boss you'd been tracking her location and sending threatening messages? Yes, none of which is true. Can you prove it's not true? I showed her my phone, the lack of location sharing apps, the absence of any threatening messages in my sent folder. I have screenshots of every text I sent her. The harshest thing I said was that my lawyer would contact her about dissolving the engagement. Good, save all of that. If she files a police report or tries to get a restraining order, you'll need it. Rebecca's expression was serious. I'm going to be blunt with you. False accusations happen, especially when someone's backed into a corner. Sarah has lost control of the narrative. Her job is likely gone, and she's facing social consequences. Some people in that position lash out. They try to flip a script and make themselves the victim. So what do? You do exactly what you've been doing. Document everything. Save every email, every text, every voicemail. Don't respond to her attempts to contact you. Don't go anywhere near her. If you see her in public, leave immediately. And if she does file a false report, we'll fight it with the mountain of evidence you're building. We spent another 30 minutes going over practical details, removing her name from my insurance beneficiaries, changing passwords on all my accounts, securing my credit in case she tried to open cards in my name. By the time I left Rebecca's office, I had a clear action plan and a strange sense of calm. That calm evaporated when I got back to my car and found 20 new text messages, all from numbers I didn't recognize. I opened the first one. You're a piece of shit for what you did to Sarah. My stomach dropped. I opened another. Imagine being so insecure you have to stalk your girlfriend to a party. And another. Sarah deserves so much better than you. Hope you're happy ruining her life. They went on like that. Dozens of messages from people I didn't know, all defending Sarah, all attacking me based on whatever story she she'd told. I took screenshots of each one, then blocked every number, but they kept coming throughout the evening, a relentless stream of strangers who'd been fed lies and turned into weapons. Marcus found me sitting in his living room at 8 p.m., staring at my phone as another anonymous text came through. "What's wrong?" I showed him the messages. His expression went dark. "She's put you on blast. Probably posted something on social media painting herself as the victim." A quick search confirmed his suspicion. Sarah had posted on Facebook. Her privacy settings opened wide so everyone could see. "Going through the hardest time of my life right now. Sometimes the people you trust most turn out to be controlling and jealous. I'm heartbroken but trying to stay strong. Thank you to everyone who's reached out with support. I'm lucky to have real friends who see the truth." The post had hundreds of likes and comments, most from people I didn't know, offering sympathy and outrage on her behalf. A few mutual friends had commented too, people who apparently believed her version without question. "I need to respond," I said. "I need to tell people the truth." "No." Marcus took my phone firmly. "That's exactly what she wants. She's baiting you into a public fight where she can play victim harder. Don't take the bait." "So I just let everyone think I'm this controlling stalker? The people who matter will learn the truth. The people who jump to conclusions based on a vague Facebook post weren't really your friends anyway." He was right, but it didn't make the injustice hurt less. My phone buzzed with a call from a number I did recognize. My brother, Aaron. "Daniel, what the hell is going on? Sarah's posting all this stuff about you being controlling and jealous, and people are saying you showed up somewhere to harass her? That doesn't sound like you." The fact that even my own brother felt the need to ask, to verify, stung, but I understood it. Sarah's lies were convincing because she'd mixed in just enough truth to make them plausible. "She's been cheating on me for at least 6 months, I said tiredly. "I found out Friday, and I caught her at a pool party with her boyfriend on Saturday. Everything she's posting is damage control to avoid taking responsibility." Jesus. "Daniel, I'm sorry. Do you need anything?" "Just for people to stop texting me death threats." After we hung up, I made similar calls to other family members, getting ahead of Sarah's narrative before it could spread further. My mother, my sister, my aunt who'd helped with wedding planning. Everyone needed to hear the truth before the lies became gospel. By the time I fell asleep that night, I'd received 53 harassing text messages from strangers, had 14 mutual friends reach out asking for my side of the story, and had seen my name dragged through social media by people who'd never met me. Tuesday morning brought news from Robert. Sarah was terminated yesterday afternoon, effective immediately. Legal is still deciding whether to pursue charges for fraud, but at minimum, she's been fired and will have difficulty explaining this to future employers. Thought you should know. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt exhausted. This wasn't about winning or losing. This was about surviving the aftermath of betrayal and coming out the other side intact. At school, I was called into the principal's office during my planning period. Principal Walker sat behind her desk with an uncomfortable expression. "Daniel, I received a concerning phone call this morning from someone claiming to be your fiancé. She said you've been experiencing mental health issues and might not be safe around students right now." The betrayal kept finding new depths. "That's not true. My ex-fiancé and I are going through a difficult separation, and she's apparently decided to try to cost me my job as retaliation." Principal Walker nodded slowly. "I suspected as much, given that you've been an exemplary teacher for 5 years and have never shown any sign of instability. But I'm required to document the call. Is there anything you need to tell me about your personal situation?" I gave her the abbreviated version, focusing on facts. Relationship ended due to infidelity, ex-partner making false allegations, working with a lawyer to resolve shared assets. Principal Walker took notes, her expression sympathetic. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this, Daniel. For the record, I don't believe these allegations for a second, but if she continues to contact the school, we may need to involve our legal department. Just keep me informed." That afternoon, I received an email from Jake. Subject line, "Man to man. Daniel, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Sarah's told me everything about your relationship and how things fell apart. I get that you're hurt, but making her life miserable isn't going to fix anything. She lost her job because of your vendetta, and now she's getting death threats from your friends. This has gone too far. Whatever issues you two had, you need to handle it like an adult and stop trying to destroy her. She's been through enough." Jake, the sheer audacity of the email, the complete inversion of reality, left me momentarily speechless. Then I forwarded it to Rebecca with a note. "Add this to the evidence file." Her response came within minutes. "This guy is either incredibly stupid or incredibly manipulated. Either way, don't respond. He's trying to provoke you into saying something he can use against you." Wednesday brought the first sign that the truth was starting to spread. Monica posted her own Facebook message. "I need to apologize. I was given false information about a friend's relationship situation, and I shared photos publicly that hurt an innocent person. I've learned that the person I thought I was supporting was actually the one in the wrong. I'm deeply sorry to everyone affected by my posts. Sometimes we believe people we trust without questioning their story, and that's on me. Doing better going forward." It wasn't a full retraction, and it didn't name Sarah specifically, but it was something. Other people who'd been at the pool party started reaching out privately, apologizing, saying they'd been lied to, offering to testify to the truth if I needed them. The tide was turning, slowly but surely. Sarah's lies were unraveling as people compared notes and realized her story had too many inconsistencies. The anonymous harassment texts stopped as people learned the full context. Mutual friends who'd initially sided with her started reaching out to hear my side. By Thursday, Sarah herself reached out through a new email address I hadn't blocked yet. "Daniel, please. This has gotten so out of control. I never meant for any of this to happen. Can we please just talk? I've lost everything. My job, my friends, friends, my reputation. You won. Isn't that enough? I'm begging you to call off your lawyer and just let me try to rebuild my life. I'm sorry, truly sorry, for everything. I read the email 3 times, searching for genuine remorse and finding only self-pity. She was sorry she'd faced consequences, sorry she'd lost things that mattered to her, but nowhere did she acknowledge the actual harm she'd caused me. Even now, even after losing everything, she still couldn't take real responsibility. I forwarded the email to Rebecca without responding. Her reply was succinct. Classic narcissist apology. All about her losses, nothing about your pain. Stay the course. Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after the world had imploded, I sat in Marcus's living room with my laptop open, working on a task I'd been putting off, contacting wedding vendors to cancel everything. Each email was a small death, a formal acknowledgement that the future I'd planned was never going to happen, but it was also freeing. Each canceled vendor was one less tie to Sarah, one less reminder of what I'd almost done. By the time I finished, I'd recovered about $4,000 in partial refunds, better than nothing, worse than I'd hoped. That evening, my mother called with unexpected news. Sarah's mother just called me. She wanted me to know that Sarah checked herself into a treatment facility for depression and anxiety. She'll be there for at least 30 days. I wasn't sure how to feel about that. Relief that she wouldn't be able to harass me, concern that she was genuinely struggling, suspicion that this was another manipulation, a way to garner sympathy. How do you feel? My mother asked gently. I don't know. I don't think I'm supposed to care anymore. You're allowed to have complicated feelings, honey. She was part of your life for 4 years. It's okay to feel bad that she's hurting, even while being angry about what she did. But I wasn't sure I did feel bad. Mostly I just felt tired and ready for this chapter to be completely closed so I could figure out who I was without her. The weekend passed quietly. No harassment, no drama, just time to breathe and process. Monday would bring more meetings with Rebecca, more legal paperwork, more steps toward untangling our lives. But for now, I had peace. And somewhere across town, Sarah was facing the reality she'd created, all alone in a treatment facility, finally forced to sit with the consequences of her choices without being able to manipulate or lie her way out. The confrontation I'd been bracing for never came. Instead, there was just this slow, grinding process of dismantling a relationship and rebuilding a life. It wasn't dramatic or satisfying in the way movies make it seem. It was just necessary, one painful step at a time. 3 weeks after Sarah entered the treatment facility, I finally moved back into our apartment, or rather, what would soon be just my apartment. The lease renewal paperwork sat on the kitchen counter with only my signature, Sarah's name conspicuously absent. She'd agreed through her lawyer to forfeit her rights to the apartment, one of the few things that had gone smoothly in our separation. The apartment felt different now, like a space I was reclaiming rather than sharing. I'd spent the previous weekend removing every trace of her, clothes donated, personal items boxed and sent to her mother's house, photos taken down and stored in the back of the closet where I wouldn't have to see them. The walls had pale rectangles where our pictures used to hang, ghosts of a relationship that no longer existed. Marcus helped me repaint the bedroom, choosing a deep blue that Sarah would have hated. Out with the old, he said, rolling paint over the beige she'd insisted on. Literally. My phone buzzed with an email from Rebecca. The subject line read, "Final settlement." I opened it to find a formal document outlining the complete dissolution of our engagement. Sarah, through her lawyer, had agreed to every term. No financial claims against each other, no contact except through legal representation, mutual non-disparagement clauses. In exchange, I'd agreed not to pursue reimbursement for the wedding deposits and to keep the details of her affair private. "She's buying your silence," Rebecca had explained when we'd negotiated the terms. "The non-disparagement clause protects her from you telling future employers or partners about what happened. You don't have to agree to it." But I had agreed because I was done. The clause worked both ways. She couldn't badmouth me either, couldn't continue spreading lies about my supposed controlling behavior. And honestly, I had no desire to follow her into whatever came next, poisoning her future relationships or job prospects. I just wanted her out of my life completely. I signed the document electronically and sent it back to Rebecca. Within an hour, she confirmed, "All signed. You're officially free." Free. The word should have felt liberating, but mostly it just felt empty. I'd spent 4 years building a life with someone who turned out to be a stranger. Now I had to figure out who I was without that relationship defining. At school, life slowly returned to normal. My students had noticed something was different. I'd been more distracted, less energetic, but they were kind enough not to pry. Teaching became my anchor, the one part of my life that still made sense. History didn't change based on who you trusted or who betrayed you. Facts remained facts. Events stayed in their proper sequence, and there was comfort in that consistency. One afternoon in late October, nearly 2 months after everything imploded, I was leaving school when I literally ran into someone in the parking lot. Papers scattered everywhere as we both bent to pick them up, apologizing simultaneously. "I'm so sorry. I wasn't watching where..." I looked up and found myself staring into warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. "It's okay, really." I was looking at my phone. She handed me my scattered lesson plans. "Are you Mr. Harrison, the history teacher?" Yes. "Daniel. And you are?" "Claire Mendez. I just started as the new art teacher. I've heard good things about your Civil War unit from the other teachers." We stood there in the parking lot, still holding our papers, and I realized I was smiling for the first time in weeks. Not a polite smile or a forced one, but genuine amusement at the absurdity of our collision. "The Civil War unit is pretty good," I admitted, "though I'm biased. Would you maybe want to collaborate on something? I've been thinking about having my students create art pieces inspired by historical events. Your students could research, mine could illustrate." "That sounds great, actually. When were you thinking?" We exchanged phone numbers, and as she walked away toward her car, car, I felt something I hadn't expected. Possibility. Not romance necessarily, just the simple recognition that life continued, that new people existed, that the future wasn't entirely defined by the past. That evening, I met Marcus at our usual sports bar. Over wings and beer, I told him about Claire, about the collaboration idea, about the strange flutter of normalcy that had come from such a mundane interaction. "That's good, man," Marcus said, raising his glass. "That's really good. You're coming back. I don't know if I'm ready to date again." I didn't say date, I said coming back. There's a difference. You're engaging with life again instead of just surviving it. He was right. The past 2 months had been about survival, getting through each day, handling the legal necessities, processing the betrayal and therapy sessions that left me emotionally wrung out. But somewhere in the process, without realizing it, I'd turned a corner. The pain was still there, but it no longer consumed everything. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, fear spiked. Another harassment message, another flying monkey Sarah had sent to attack me. But the message was benign. "Hi Daniel, this is Claire from school. Just wanted to send you that article about art history integration I mentioned. No pressure to read it tonight." "Claire," I smiled and texted back, then showed Marcus. "See? Normal human interaction." I'd forgotten what that felt like. The following week brought unexpected news from Robert. He called during my lunch break, his voice carefully neutral. "I thought you should know that Sarah applied for a position at one of our competitor companies. They called me for a reference." My stomach tightened. "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That she was terminated for fraudulent use of company benefits and potential ethics violations involving a client relationship. I can't legally say more than that, but I can confirm employment dates and termination status." "Will she get the job?" "Not from them. They called back to withdraw her application an hour after my reference call." He paused. "Daniel, I want you to know something. What she did, the lies, the manipulation, the complete lack of remorse, that kind of behavior doesn't just appear overnight. You're not the first person she hurt, and you probably won't be the last. But you got out before you married her, before you had kids, before it got even more complicated. That matters." After we hung up, I sat in my classroom thinking about his words. Sarah was facing consequences beyond our relationship, professional consequences that would follow her. Part of me felt guilty for that, but a larger part recognized that these were consequences she'd created herself. I hadn't reported her to HR. I hadn't fabricated evidence. I'd simply documented the truth, and the truth had natural consequences. That weekend, I did something I'd been avoiding. I went through the box of letters I'd found in Sarah's closet. I'd photographed them for evidence, but had never actually processed what they said. Now, with legal settlements signed and the immediate crisis past, I made myself read them chronologically. The earliest letter was from 14 months ago, just 2 months before I'd proposed. "Sarah, meeting you at the conference changed my life. I know you have a boyfriend, but what we have is different. Special. I'll be patient. Jay." They'd met at a marketing conference. While I'd been home grading papers, Sarah had been starting an affair. The next letters charted their relationship. Stolen weekends when she'd told me she was visiting friends. Lunch meetings disguised as client calls. Late nights at the office that were actually hotel rooms. One letter, dated a week after our engagement, made me physically ill. "I know you said yes to him, and I understand you have to keep up appearances for now, but we both know where your heart really is. I'll wait for you to be ready to leave him, however long it takes. Jay." She'd never intended to marry me. The engagement had been a cover, a way to maintain her double life while she figured out her next move. I'd been a placeholder, a safety net, the boring, reliable choice while she explored passion with Jake. The last letter was dated 3 days before I discovered everything. "Can't wait for this weekend. Just think. Soon you won't have to hide anymore. Soon it'll just be us. No more pretending. Love you, Jay." They'd been planning for her to leave me. The pool party weekend wasn't just about cheating. It was supposed to be some kind of celebration of their future together, their relationship finally coming out of the shadows. Finding out I knew had ruined whatever announcement they'd been planning. I put the letters back in the box and stored them in the back of my closet. Evidence I hoped I'd never need but couldn't quite bring myself to throw away. Then I called my therapist and scheduled an emergency session, because reading those letters had reopened wounds I thought were starting to heal. Dr. Patterson listened patiently as I worked through my anger and hurt. "What bothers you most?" she asked. "The cheating itself or the premeditation?" "The premeditation," I said immediately. "The fact that she was planning this, that every day she came home to me was a calculated lie. How do you do that? How do you look someone in the face and plan to destroy their life while pretending to love them? That's a question about her character, not about you," Dr. Patterson said gently. "You're looking for logic in fundamentally illogical behavior. Some people are capable of that level of deception. It doesn't mean you deserved it or should have seen it coming. It means you trusted someone who wasn't trustworthy. How do I trust anyone again?" Slowly, carefully, with your eyes open. "But Daniel, not trusting anyone isn't really living. It's just surviving, and you deserve more than survival." Claire and I started collaborating on the art history project, meeting twice a week to coordinate our lesson plans. She was easy to talk to, with a dry sense of humor and genuine passion for teaching. We kept things professional, but I found myself looking forward to our meetings, appreciating the easy camaraderie that developed. One afternoon, as we were reviewing student proposals, she said casually, "So I heard through the teacher gossip mill that you recently ended a long relationship. I hope it's not weird that I know that." I laughed. Teachers do love to gossip. "If you ever want to talk about it, I'm a good listener. No pressure though. I know breakups are rough." Ended engagement actually, and it was complicated. Complicated how? I found myself telling her a simplified version. Fiancée cheated. Discovered it through an email from her boss. Relationship ended. I left out the dramatic details, the letters, the pool party confrontation. Claire listened without judgment, her expression sympathetic but not pitying. "That's awful," she said finally. "I'm sorry sorry that happened to you. Thanks, I'm working through it. Well, for what it's worth, she clearly didn't know what she was giving up. The comment was kind, but it also felt like a boundary being carefully tested. Was Claire flirting? Was I reading too much into a simple compliment? I wasn't sure I was ready to find out. November arrived with cold rain and shorter days. The date that would have been our wedding came and passed, marked only by my mother's gentle text. Thinking of you today. Love you, honey. I spent that day doing normal things. Grading papers, grocery shopping, meeting Marcus for dinner. The wedding that wasn't happening didn't deserve more acknowledgement than that. Sarah had stolen enough of my time and energy. She wouldn't get this day too. The next week, Rebecca called with final news. Sarah's lawyer contacted me. She's asking if you'd be willing to modify the non-disparagement clause to allow her to explain the termination to potential employers as a mutual separation rather than termination for cause. Why would I agree to that? You wouldn't, unless she was offering something in return. In this case, she's offering to repay your share of the wedding deposits. $4,500 deposited into your account within 60 days in exchange for the modified language. $4,000 to help her lie her way into new jobs. It was tempting, but something about it felt wrong, like accepting blood money. What do you recommend? Honestly, tell her no. She created this situation. The consequences are hers to manage. That $4,000 will cost you more in peace of mind than it's worth. She was right. Tell her no. That Friday, Claire asked if I wanted to grab coffee after school. Just coffee, she clarified. Not a date. Unless you want it to be a date, in which case I'm totally okay with that clarification. But I don't want to pressure you if you're not ready for— Coffee sounds great, I interrupted, smiling. Let's start there. We went to a small cafe near school, talking easily about everything except our personal lives. Books, movies, teaching horror stories, the bizarre politics of school administration. It was comfortable, uncomplicated, exactly what I needed. As we were leaving, Claire said, "Thanks for this. It's nice to have a teacher friend who doesn't just want to complain about standardized testing." Friend. The word established a boundary, and I was grateful for it. Whatever this was, it could develop naturally without pressure or expectations. That night, I moved Sarah's boxed belongings from my closet to the building's storage unit, creating physical distance to match the emotional distance I built. The engagement ring sat in its box, worthless to me now. I considered selling it, but ultimately donated it to a charity auction. Someone else could benefit from the money it would raise, and I didn't want anything from that relationship following me forward. December brought the first real snow and an unexpected email from Monica. "Daniel, I know we haven't talked since everything happened, but I wanted you to know that Sarah got out of treatment last week. She's been reaching out to mutual friends, trying to rebuild her social circle. I thought you should be aware in case she tries to contact you. For what it's worth, I'm sorry for my part in all of this. You didn't deserve any of it. Monica." I thanked her for the warning, but felt strangely indifferent to the news. Sarah was out of treatment, back in the world, trying to rebuild. Good for her. It didn't affect me anymore. That chapter was closed, locked, and filed away in the past where it belonged. The semester ended with a successful art history showcase. My students' research on Civil War battles paired beautifully with Claire's students' artistic interpretations. Parents attended, administrators praised the collaboration, and for the first time in months, I felt genuine pride in something I'd accomplished. Claire and I stood together at the showcase, watching students excitedly explain their projects to parents. "We should do this again next semester," she said. "Maybe tackle reconstruction? I'd like that." She smiled, and I realized I was ready for whatever came next. Professionally, personally, all of it. The pain of betrayal would always be part of my story, but it didn't have to be the whole story. I was rebuilding, slowly and carefully, and that was enough. Spring arrived with unexpected warmth, melting the last of winter's snow and bringing with it a sense of renewal I hadn't anticipated. 6 months had passed since the day everything fell apart, and somewhere along the way, I'd stopped counting the days since Sarah and started counting the days forward. The art history collaboration with Claire had expanded into a full curriculum partnership. We'd presented our reconstruction project at a district-wide teaching conference in March, earning praise from administrators and interest from other schools wanting to replicate our model. More importantly, our professional friendship had deepened into something I was finally ready to acknowledge as personal interest. It happened gradually, naturally. Coffee after work became dinner occasionally. Dinner became weekend plans. Weekend plans became the comfortable routine of two people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Claire never pushed, never demanded definitions or timelines. She understood somehow that I needed to heal at my own pace. One Saturday afternoon in early April, we were hiking a trail outside the city when she stopped at a scenic overlook, catching her breath. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are you ready to talk about what really happened with Sarah? The full story, not the sanitized version you told me back in October?" I looked out at the valley below, considering. I'd kept the details private for months, partly for legal reasons, but mostly because reliving them hurt. But standing there with Claire, I realized I wanted her to know, not as a test or a confession, but simply as part of sharing who I was. I told her everything: the fake funeral, the pool party photos, the letters, the lies Sarah had spread, the professional consequences, the treatment facility, all of it. Claire listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from shock to anger to sadness as the story unfolded. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "That's so much worse than I imagined. Daniel, I'm so sorry. Nobody deserves that level of betrayal. I'm okay now. We're getting there anyway." "You are," she agreed. "I've watched you these past few months. You're not just surviving anymore. You're actually living again. You helped with that." She smiled, taking my hand for the first time. "Good, because I really like the person you're becoming. Or maybe re-becoming. Whatever this is, I like it." That simple touch, that honest declaration, felt monumental, not because it was the start of something necessarily, but because it was proof that trust could rebuild. healed, that connections could form even after everything had been shattered. The following week brought news I hadn't expected. Marcus called during my lunch break, his voice tight with barely suppressed amusement. "You're not going to believe this. Jake called me." "What? Why would Jake call you?" "Apparently Sarah gave him a list of your friends to try to make amends with. He wanted to meet for coffee to apologize for his role in everything." Marcus laughed. "I told him to lose my number." "Did he say anything about Sarah?" "Oh, that's the best part. They broke up 3 weeks ago. According to him, she'd been lying to him too. About her job, about you, about pretty much everything. He figured it out when he tried to visit her at work and discovered she'd been fired months ago. She'd been pretending to go to work every day, sitting in coffee shops instead. The irony was almost poetic. Sarah had destroyed our relationship with lies, then destroyed her next relationship the same way. Some people never learn." How did he sound? Lost, confused, like he was starting to realize he'd been played just as hard as you were. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. I didn't feel bad for Jake at all. He'd known about me from the start, had participated actively in the deception, had sent me that condescending email about handling things like an adult. Whatever pain he was experiencing now came from choices he'd made with open eyes. That evening, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "I owe you an apology. Against my better judgment." I opened it. "Daniel, this is Sarah. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand if you delete this without reading, but I've been in therapy. Real therapy this time. Not just the 30-day program. And my therapist suggested I might find closure in reaching out. I'm not asking for forgiveness or trying to get back together. I just want you to know that I understand now what I did to you. The betrayal, the lies, the manipulation, all of it was wrong. You deserved honesty, and I gave you deception. You deserved loyalty, and I gave you betrayal. I've lost everything because of my choices. My job, my reputation, my relationship with Jake, most of my friends. And I'm starting to understand that these are consequences I earned. I don't know if this means anything to you, but I am genuinely sorry for the pain I caused. You were a good partner, and I took advantage of your trust. That's on me, not you. I hope you found happiness. You deserve it. I won't contact you again. Sarah." I read the email 3 times, searching for hidden manipulation or ulterior motives, but it seemed genuine as Sarah was capable of being. She'd lost Jake, lost whatever future she'd imagined with him, and was finally facing the reality that her actions had consequences beyond my hurt feelings. I showed the email to Claire over dinner that night. She read it carefully, then looked up. "How do you feel about it?" "Honestly, nothing. It's a nice apology, I guess, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't undo what happened or give me back the time I lost. It's just words. Are you going to respond?" "No. She said she wouldn't contact me again, and I'm taking her at her word. This chapter is closed." Claire nodded, understanding, without needing more explanation. That was the thing about her. She never demanded more than I was willing to give, never pushed for reactions or emotions I didn't feel. In May, the school year wound down with the familiar chaos of final exams and end-of-year projects. My students had thrived with the art history collaboration, and several had told me it was their favorite unit all year. Professional success didn't erase personal pain, but it reminded me that I was good at something, that I had value beyond romantic relationships. On the last day of school, Claire and I stood in the parking lot saying goodbye before summer break. "So," she said, "I'm going to visit my family in New Mexico for 2 weeks, but after that, I'm back. And I was wondering if maybe when I get back, we could go on an actual date, one where we acknowledge it's a date from the start." My heart did a small flip, nerves and excitement mixed together. "I'd really like that." "Good, because I really like you, Daniel Harrison, and I think you're ready for this." She was right. I was ready. Not to replace what I'd lost, but to build something new with someone who'd proven herself trustworthy through months of patience and genuine friendship. That summer was transformative. I traveled, something I'd rarely done during my relationship with Sarah, who'd always found reasons we couldn't afford trips or couldn't take time off. I visited my brother in Colorado, spent a week at the beach with Marcus, took my parents out for their anniversary. I also went on dates with Claire. Real dates, acknowledged and intentional. We took things slowly, both of us aware of my recent history, but the progression felt natural. By August, we were officially together, and it felt fundamentally different from my relationship with Sarah. With Claire, there was transparency. We talked about our feelings, our concerns, our hopes. When problems arose, we addressed them directly instead of letting them fester. She introduced me to her friends without hesitation. I met her family when they visited, and they welcomed me warmly. Everything was out in the open, honest, real. In September, on what would have been my 1-year wedding anniversary with Sarah, I took Claire to dinner at a nice restaurant downtown. She noticed the date's significance, I could tell, but didn't comment on it. She was giving me space to feel whatever I needed to feel. "You know what's weird?" I said over dessert. "I don't feel sad today. I don't feel angry or hurt or anything really. I just feel grateful. Grateful that I found out before the wedding, that I didn't marry her, didn't have kids with her, didn't waste more years on someone who was lying to me. If she'd been better at hiding it, I might have married her and found out years later. This timing, awful as it was, saved me from something so much worse." Claire reached across the table and took my hand. "That's a really healthy way to look at it. My therapist would be proud," I said, smiling. "But it's true. Everything that happened led me here, to this moment with you. I wouldn't wish the pain on anyone, but I also wouldn't trade where I ended up." Later that night, walking Claire to her car, she stopped and turned to face me. "I love you," she said simply. "I know it might be too soon, and you don't have to say it back, but I wanted you to know." The words didn't scare me like I'd expected them to. Instead, they felt like coming home. "I love you too," I said, and meant it completely. As fall settled in and a new school year began, I found myself occasionally thinking about Sarah, not with anger or longing, but with a distant curiosity about how her life had turned out. I never looked her up, never tried to find out. It didn't matter. She was part of my past, a chapter that had taught me hard lessons about trust, about red flags I'd ignored, about the importance of genuine partnership. One October evening, I was grading papers when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Daniel, this is Jake. I almost hung up immediately. What do you want? I know you have no reason to listen to me, but I wanted to tell you something. Sarah and I ran into each other last week. She's with someone new now, and from what I could tell, she's doing the same thing to him she did to us, lying about her past, creating this whole persona. I tried to warn him, and she's threatening to file harassment charges against me. Why are you telling me this? Because you were right about everything, and I was an idiot who believed her lies because I wanted to. I'm not asking for forgiveness or trying to be friends. I just thought you should know that you dodged a serious bullet. This woman is never going to change. After he hung up, I sat with the information for a few minutes. Then I deleted his number and went back to grading papers. Sarah's patterns weren't my concern anymore. Her new victim would figure it out eventually, just as Jake had, just as I had. The difference was that I'd moved on. I had a relationship built on honesty, a career I loved, friends who'd proven their loyalty, and a future that looked nothing like the one I planned a year ago. It looked better. Christmas came with Claire spending the holidays with my family. My mother pulled me aside at one point, watching Claire laugh at one of my father's terrible jokes. She's wonderful, honey. Nothing like Sarah. I know. That's kind of the point. Are you happy? I thought about the question, really considered it. Despite everything that had happened, despite the betrayal and pain and months of rebuilding, I could honestly say, yeah, Mom, I really am. The new year arrived with Claire and me watching fireworks from Marcus's rooftop, surrounded by friends who'd supported me through the worst of times and were now celebrating the best. As midnight struck and Claire kissed me, I felt the final pieces of my old life fall away completely. Sarah had tried to destroy me with her betrayal, but in the end, she'd done me a favor. She'd shown me what I didn't want, what I wouldn't tolerate, what real love wasn't. And in learning those lessons, I'd found something genuine with someone who deserved my trust. The scars remained. They always would, but they'd become part of my story rather than the whole story. I was Daniel Harrison, history teacher, loyal friend, son, brother, and partner to an amazing woman who chose me every day. Not the man whose fiancée cheated, though that was part of it. Not the victim of betrayal, though I'd survived one. Just a man who'd learned hard lessons, grown from them, and built a life worth living on the other side. And that, ultimately, was the best revenge. Living well, loving honestly, and never looking back. What do you think about Daniel's journey? Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for listening until the end.